The Labour Party today is trying to tell you that Labour authorities charge less council tax than their Conservative counterparts. But Sir Keir Starmer says there is no magic money tree for councils. Let's find out a little bit more of the detail. We're joined by the Labour Party chair, Annalise Dodds. Annalise, a very good morning to you. Can you help us sort of square this circle? We're being told there's no magic money tree for local councils, but that you're going to level them up. So how are you going to do that?
Good morning. Well, it's really important that we do deal with that awful situation we're seeing in local authorities. Over the last 14 years, we've seen really the economic decline that's impacted every part of our country, also impacting on local authorities. And, you know, what you said about council tax at the beginning is absolutely right. On average, if you take the figures for this year, if you live in a Labour-run area, then you're paying £276 less than if you live in an area that's controlled by another party. So there's clearly far better financial management coming from Labour-run councils. But we've not seen from national government the approach that's needed. First of all, actually, national government hasn't made sure that money that was announced to much trumpeting from levelling up, that it's actually got into projects on the ground. 90% of that money hasn't actually been spent on projects. But also we've had a really short-term approach coming from central government, year on year chop and change in the financial settlements for local government. So Labour would be working really from the ground up, rebuilding councils from the ground up so they can have much more stability, so that those local communities can be taking back control and having much more control over their destiny.
A few things I want to kind of pick up on there, Annalise. The first is that council tax is predominantly determined by the value of the house that you live in. That's got nothing to do with which authority is in charge. It could be, it may very well be, that Labour-run councils have properties in them that are less valuable.
Well, actually, if you look, for example, at Band D properties, on average, if you live in a Labour-run area, then you're paying £38 less. So this isn't something that just shakes down into what kind of properties are in different areas. There's clearly that strong financial management coming from Labour, because ultimately Labour as a party recognise the money that people have got in their pocket is really important, particularly now when we've seen so much pressure on family finances because of that cost of living crisis. We're really determined to make sure that people have as much of that money still in their pocket as possible.
Annalise, people want better public services. That's the key thing. We've seen that in many YouGov polls. And I wonder, you want to talk about specific examples. Residents in Birmingham, their council tax is going up. This is a Labour-run authority, going up 21%, and yet they're being told the street lights are going to be dimmed, your rubbish isn't going to be as collected as often as usual. I mean, that's been shameful management.
Well, I was in Thurrock yesterday, and actually we see a similar increase in council tax taking place, and that isn't a Labour-run authority. I mean, the big change that we've seen over the years is, as I said, coming from central government, that really short-term approach to local authorities, not letting them know what finance they'll have in the future. And as a result of that and other changes that the Conservatives have made, unfortunately, you've seen huge pressure on different local authorities. And as I said, that's not just impacted Labour-run local authorities. There's a special mechanism that's applied if you have a local authority that's in really difficult financial circumstances. You used to hardly ever hear of that Section 14 notice being applied in the past. Well, we've had so many different cases of that section being applied under recent Conservative-led governments, and that's because of their mismanagement of the situation, both with local authorities, but with public services more generally.
Yeah, I think in Thurrock, the council tax is going up by about 10%. In Birmingham, it's 21%. So if we really want to make this comparison, we can. Let's talk about, we're going to go through the papers there in just a moment. Unfortunately for the Labour Party, it's negative headlines over your colleague, Angela Rayner, and the lack of clarity, really, the questions which all could be answered. And I wonder if you sort of agree with this, Annalise, that could be cleared up if she just issues the advice that she said she had, which says she didn't make any mistakes. She's followed the letter of the law. Do you think it's right that she says to the public, I can clear this all up, I'll show it to you?
Look, Angela is someone who always does the right thing. I know that. I know her very well. I've got complete confidence in her. And, really, I think we need to ask the question, why are we seeing this petty politicking coming from the Conservatives? I know that rather than talking about the finances of one individual, many people watching this will be saying, well, hang on, why aren't politicians talking about family finances, talking about the finances of the country? Yet again, as I said, more petty politicking coming from the Conservatives. I think a lot of people are pretty fed up with this.
Annalise, was it petty when Angela Rayner said of Nadeem Zahawi, for example, if he's lied and misled the public and HMRC regarding his tax affairs, then I think his position is untenable?
Well, no, of course it wasn't. And we were talking there about a situation where the very person who was running those overall services hadn't actually been clear about whether they'd adopted an approach that was very different to that taken by millions of taxpayers in our country. Look, I've got every confidence in Angela Rayner. And as I say, I think we need to ask the question of why the Conservatives seem to be obsessed with petty politicking around Angela Rayner rather than actually focusing on the big issues for people on the ground. The cost of living, our public services that are crumbling, they should be talking about their plans in those areas. And I know why they're not, because they haven't got those robust plans.
But Angela Rayner's brief, if elected, will be housing. Why leave room for the speculation? Why not just clear this up? She could be the Deputy Prime Minister in charge of this brief where the allegations lie. This all could be cleared up. Do you regret maybe that the policy wasn't different a few days ago and this could have been, cleared straight away?
Well, I think there's something very important here, and it's the fact that we have a politician who was living in a council house, who decided to purchase their council house. And that's quite unusual to have a politician to do that. And I don't think that's a problem with Angela Rayner. I think that's a problem with our political system, that we don't have enough people who've got that experience of everyday life. We should have more of them. Quite frankly, we should have more people who've got that everyday experience. And as I say, I think this petty politicking that we're seeing from the Conservatives is really because they don't want to be talking about the cost of living. They don't want to be talking about our schools, our hospitals, the lack of police on our streets. And that's where the national conversation is.
Annalise Dodds, thank you for your time at the Labour Party chair speaking to us this morning.